most common definition of mindfulness that people know about is the present moment awareness. But I actually want to talk about mindfulness that goes beyond just present moment awareness. And this is a very important point I want to make. What mindfulness asks us to do is to beware of the stories that our mind is making. Okay? Look at the reality and separate facts from interpretation. So obviously it's very relevant to you guys, and let me explain it a little bit. So when something happens, our mind makes stories, and it makes sense. Like our right side of the brain, it just collects the details from the environment, and the left side of the brain, it connects the dots. It creates evidence from the past, from newspapers, from whatever they hear about, everything. It collects everything, and it makes up a logical story on what's going to happen. And a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times, that story actually is more exaggerated version, or not even that true. Like Lalit, you were talking about how you were convinced on the previous night before you went in the office that you were going to get a pink slip. And it makes total sense. Nobody could have told you at that time, no, Lalit, in fact, you were going to be the one fortunate person who's going to stick around, right? And so that's how our minds work. And it makes sense from the evolution's point of view also. Like you must have heard of the baggage of evolution that we all carry from the cave days, when we were afraid of some saber-toothed tiger jumping or something lurking behind the tree for us. So our brains are still stuck into that, and they're never going to catch up, because the pace of our cultural progress has been so fast that there is no way for our brain to catch up. So let's just admit it, that we'll have to do it not by hardware, but by using software. So we'll have to develop certain habits. We'll have to recognize what's what. We'll have to become wiser. And I'm so amazed that 2,500 years ago, Buddha, who didn't have the neuroscience, knowledge of neuroscience, but he recognized it. He knew that our perceptions and whatever we see or whatever we think about, it depends on a lot of things. It's not all facts. It's not all the truth. So imagine, for example, if you see somebody in the corridor somewhere a little bit far away, and this has happened to me long time ago, and they don't smile at you, what are you going to think? If they don't smile, you'll think about last time in a meeting you disagreed with them, how they don't like disagreements. That's why they are not happy with you. Maybe they don't like me. That's where your mind goes. And then I found out that the person did not have their glasses on, so they didn't even know who it was in the corridor. So these kinds of things are not uncommon. And that's not to say that whatever stories your mind is making is all false. I'm not saying that, but at least collect data and learn to see what is your pattern, in what ways you make up stories. How many times do they come out to be exactly true? How many times they're exaggerated? And how many times they are probably, like somewhat true? So my tip to you, tip number one, is to recognize this and then create a question mark in your mind. Maybe yes, maybe not. So that, if you internalize what I'm saying, that itself actually gives a little bit of a solace to know that what I'm thinking about may not come out to be true. So when it comes to jobs, whatever you're imagining, whatever ways in which things are going to go wrong. And again, we are living in unprecedented times. This crisis is very unusual. So we have the whole playground open for us for making stories. I mean, newspaper and everything is adding to it. And so again, my heart goes out to everybody who is in that situation. But what I'm urging you to do is to think about if there are ways in which your mind is exaggerating whatever it is. So Lalit, you have anything to say to this in terms of what you did?
Yeah, sorry. I was
Yeah,
just gonna
Nishant.
add, Lalit, please feel to chime in, and whoever professors who want to join in. I think that's a very important lesson. And, I'll tell you exactly the same thing. One time I had made the move on my wife's moving here. And one time his boss casually mentioned that, hey, you know what? We may have to call you back to India. And since then, till now, did we have difficulties sleeping around that, hey, what happens to, we made this big move. So, but honestly, knowing if I were to put a statistical probability matter and use all the data points, so much is going for us. And there are so many positive alternate opportunities. But like they say that, one negative experiences takes 12 positive experiences to sort of,
Yes.
equate and feel comfortable with. It's sort of as one of the victims of the situation. I was saying, hey, I started to take too much stress, and it doesn't matter. I came here, had a good time. Even if I have to go back to India, it is a supremely privileged position where I am to actually be able to do that, right? And I pivoted to join MIT, and I was not never thinking about doing that at all. If this situation would not have happened, I would not be going through a startup, running my own startup, or going to MIT. So I think it is just if we are able to mindfully realize that, and sometimes we are transactly reacting and not responding to the situation, is what I learned. And that's my lesson from, an amazing amount of stress that I felt in the last few months. Make no mistake, I went through it. But yeah, Lalit, over to you. Sorry, Lalit, you're on mute. My apologies.
Yeah, no worries. Um, no, all of these make sense. The key is how we, there are these, as Swati was saying, that many times we just make impressions on our mind that it may be like this. But we as a human being, we have control on ourselves, right? Even if something was to happen, there are so many other doors. And many a time, if we just keep thinking about the door then that closed on us, there are many other doors we become blind to. And the key out here is that one door closes, but there are 90, there are 999 other doors that we are not looking at. And the key is to look at those doors and then go and make your life. Yeah.
So Lalit, you make a really good point. When one door closes, and if your mind is open to see the other doors, then you can see another door opening, sometimes behind your back. So you'll have to turn around and look for that. And mindfulness, if you practice mindfulness, what happens is your brain kind of gives up this getting stuck into like, this is what's going to happen. And it becomes more open to other perspective and noticing other things, other doors that could become open. So in your case, you didn't have to look, you went in and you found out that they did not give you a pink slip. But in case of Nishant, maybe he had to sort of, open up to the possibility of maybe going to MIT. So you never know what's going to come up. So please be open to that. That's one of the things that mindfulness gives you, like instead of stressing over things, wait to see what's there. Be mindful of the stories that your brain could be making.